Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. It's going by quickly, and to its lessons that we're going to talk about for this week in the gospel itself. I just want to have a few things I want to share with you even before I get into any of the lesson, because I think these are important pieces as well. The lesson is one thing, and you'll get that down pat sooner than later, but you have to understand that things are going to kind of get in the way or maybe even enhance it. And you want to take note of that. You want to make sure you take advantage of that. So the challenge, I wouldn't even call it a challenge. I think this is a great opportunity that comes to us as grandparents, is that we can take the time to look and feel what's going on and be intuitive what's going on with the children in terms of their faith formation. And sometimes we have to kind of shift gears a little bit, and that's okay. One of the things I've always told catechists over the years, be prepared, make sure you're prepared for your lesson. But more importantly, well, equally important, would be to pray to the Holy Spirit for guidance. What is it you need me to teach today? What is it they need to hear? So sometimes it could take off a little bit of a way. That's okay. Don't be afraid of that, and trust your gut with that. Eventually you take on this catechetical mindset where everything becomes a teaching moment, and it can be, a little, once you get used to that, the Holy Spirit can do it even better. So that I just wanted to say that, because that's what happened to us yesterday, Monday. Before I forget, I had Mohs surgery, in case you're wondering. Everything's fine, but my pretty bandage is sitting here, so nothing to be concerned about. Anyway, yesterday, well, even before yesterday, Justin, my grandson, had said to me, "Grandma, I really would like to join this club on Monday. It's only for 45 minutes. And Mom wants to know if you can pick me up, because she'll usually works on Monday." And I said, "All right, but wait a second, Justin." He said, I know. Monday is Faith Formation Day. You think we could do it?" And I said, "Well, let's talk about it." Now, I did not want to put one up against the other. You don't want that, gee, I really want to join this club, but it's, faith formation that's keeping me away from it. You don't want to do that. I said, let's figure it out. So we did. We talked about it. At the end of the day, I picked him up, and all we had to do was start a half hour later. And it's only temporary. I think it's only for 6 weeks. But my point is this: they knew what was important. And we don't want to mess up, Faith Formation Day, which I was really happy to see. You just don't know sometimes. So that was an interesting occurrence yesterday. But the other thing is, when I got into the house, his sister Sage said, Grandma, my friend is on my iPad, and she wants to know if you're here because she has a question. She has religion tonight, and the catechist gave her a question she doesn't know the answer to. Can you help her out? So I did. I mean, I don't know if it was a right or wrong answer. I'm not sure what the catechist was looking for, but I did. I will text her later to see if that was the case. But the word is out, Grandma's teaching, and the kids are enjoying it. And I know there have been some parents wishing that they had the same situation. So we'll see. We'll play with it. We'll pray to the Holy Spirit, see wherever the Spirit guides us to go. And it's always the best way, because the Spirit knows better than any of us. So before we started the lesson yesterday, which was on the Pharisee and the tax collector, if you remember last week, I asked them about their prayer, and I could sense they needed to move a little bit. So I asked them, I said, how was it with you imagining that Jesus was there? And I got a mixed review. I mean, honestly, one was like, Grandma, it was really nice, nothing deep, nothing, but just the fact that they're getting used to that idea, I'm okay with that. And Justin is like, well, it worked sometimes, and sometimes it didn't. If I remember to picture Jesus there, the whole thing. So I said, well, we got to get a little more serious about it this week. Do it again and see what comes from that. I also started to think maybe I need to perhaps give them an image. Remember last week I mentioned for the younger children to give them an image of Christ. Maybe they need that as well. And they're old enough maybe to have a crucifix, but they're into sports. And like I said, Jesus has, well, there's pictures of Jesus kicking a soccer ball, and, it may not be theologically tight, but the fact is that they could relate to that would be of help, I think. So I'm going to go search for that this week and hopefully bring it to them on next Monday. So before we started our conversation, again, we really got into prayer, and they had more questions about prayer this week than they did last week. So they're thinking about it. Again, the proverbial, what happens when I pray and I don't get my prayers answered? What does that mean? So at this point, I was able to share with them my own experience. Sure, that's happened. We're human. That's happened to all of us. How many times have we prayed for someone to get sick and they die? How many times have we prayed for something that didn't happen? But to help them understand that prayer is prayer, God is still listening, and that the answer may not be the way we expected it, but that the guarantee is that, number one, God is always with us. And number two, God makes it all come out right. So if they can learn those two lessons, that takes a leap of faith, even for me at times as an adult, that, God's going to make this all turn out okay. And when you're in the middle of it, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. So they're starting to ask. I would also have you, if you're teaching younger children as well, see how they're doing with their prayer, and do they like, how do they talk to God? And they need more help probably with the actual praying that you can teach them. And at this point, when you're dealing with younger children, you become the model, so whatever way you pray, certainly share that with them. And I shared that with them yesterday as well, that this is how I pray. This is how I do it, how I close my eyes, or maybe not, or I see something in nature, whatever it is. There's lots of different ways to prayer and to pray. So that consumed a lot of our time. And I was glad about that, because it gave us a chance to discuss something that's so important in terms of our relationship with Jesus, for all of us. Like any relationship, if you don't have that communication, it's not going to work. So for them to get to a point and to a place where they feel comfortable and they feel that God is with them. That was my main question to them this week was, did you feel that God was with you? Did you sense that? And they both said, yes, that's good. So I'll keep harboring on that a little bit just to see how they're doing. And then again, I will, show them, different ways of prayer. We'll continue to do that together, which, honestly, when I started to think about it, what a privilege that is to be able to sit with your grandchildren and talk about prayer, show them how to pray, really handing on the faith. This is an honor. This is a privilege. So, and I think the kids know it too. I think they feel good about that. Whether they're getting it at that moment, they sense something is happening. So that's a good thing. I did ask them about, when they went to Mass on Sunday, when they hear the gospel and the readings, how does that make them feel? And they were, they weren't like overjoyed about it. In other words, jumping around about it, but they did say, it's nice to know you're going to hear it, what we just learned. And Justin, of course, says, I bet you, we know more than the people sitting in the pews. I said, Justin, well, maybe, but that's so antithesis to our gospel that we're going to be doing for next week, for the Pharisee who thinks they do everything right. So, or they're better than everybody else. So we did get into the lesson. We prayed and, typically went through it. This pages speak for themselves. So the lesson is done pretty much. And it's great. It's great because you don't have to knock your head against the wall, but introduce to them maybe different things. It frees you up so that maybe you can, bring something different and be more creative if you feel the need. So we finished the lesson. At the end of the lesson, I played a song for them, and this is an oldie but a goodie, and I remember my kids singing it. It was, Our God is an Awesome God by Rich Mullins, and it had the lyrics so they could follow. And it was nice to hear it. And my son walks in and goes, "Oh my God, I remember that song from years ago." So I said, "It's nice to know you can hand it." And of course, it's new to the children, and they thought it was great. And the oldest grandson is going, "Oh no, we're going to hear this all the time now in the house." And I said, "Yeah, you are. That's just the way it is. So join in." So they were cute, and we got into humility. We got into the virtues, and what does that mean? And I, even with the younger children, humility was discussed, and teaching them those seeds. Those younger kids in a way, I think it's wonderful. The younger that you are, the children are, that you can start this process with them, and it will continue to grow. And you can really sit back and watch the involvement, which is a blessing in itself. When the lesson was over, we prayed for people and whatever we needed to do, and we handed out things to get them ready for the next time we meet. I did get a chance to show them the pictures from Greece because we didn't meet physically last week together. And they saw them, and they were so excited. They really were, I have to say, when they saw where Paul preached, they knew. And I said, did you hear, the Corinthians? And well, here's Corinth, and here's where we had Mass, where Paul taught. What about St. John? What did he do? Well, he wrote the gospel, and Ephesus. Did you ever hear Paul talk about a letter to the Ephesians? And they were like, yeah. Well, here's Ephesus. This is where it happened. Those kinds of things. So whenever you have anything like that, any kind of, you want to share with them, anything church related or religion related, certainly do that. It can happen to us often. The other thing we did discuss was, I am on the Synod Committee in my parish, and it's been quite the journey. It's been a wonderful journey. And this past Sunday, the Archdiocese had a Mass, a celebratory Mass of the closing of the first phase of the Synod. So I went, they had all the parishes come in and carry a little, banner or whatever, and with the name of the parish, we processed in, and it was very lovely. I wasn't sure how it would be, but it was lovely. We have Cardinal Tobin here, Joseph Tobin, who's quite a person. He's just really great. And he said two things that jumped up at me. One was when he read the gospel of the persistent widow and the unjust judge, he said there's a line in there which we should be asking ourselves. We probably should have been asking it through the synod process, is when the Son of Man comes back, now I'm going to paraphrase, will he see faith? He said that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Where are we with this? And I think part of my concern of this was to make sure, we number one need to have it, I think. How do we go about it? And maybe this would be a new venue of grandparents teaching grandchildren. But he said another important thing. He felt, and many of the dioceses felt, that the greatest theme that came through this process is how will we hand on the faith? And that seems to be a universal concern at this point. Who's going to teach it? Who's going to give it to them? How are they going to grasp it in this very uncertain world? And I took back home with me that notion that this is important work. And when you're doing this, especially in your family and with your grandchildren, I just think this is an honor. And maybe this is the time that, certainly things in the world are awry, things in the country are awry, but we still have to remain and remember that our constant is God. So no matter what, because life does happen. So that was the lesson yesterday. It was interesting. So we veered off a little bit, but stayed in tune, certainly with the gospel and all that went with it. We went through the sacrament of reconciliation as well, and the different kinds of prayer. So we covered it, but took the time to go through other things that popped up this week, and you got to grab them, because they're teaching moments. So I would be more than happy if you would send and share any of the lessons and the experiences that you have had, and so we can share with others. Listen, we're all a learning community. Even though we're teaching, we're also learning. So if you have anything at this point, we're emailing, and we're not doing it live yet, but if you certainly have a suggestion or anything like that, please feel free to email me. It's marilyn@flam.com. So I'd be more than happy to receive any information or things that you've used that, I certainly don't have all the answers. You have some of them as well. So if we could share that, how great would that be? So have a good week and enjoy this 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. And we'll see you next week. Okay, take care. God bless.